Serious question for you. Now that everyone and their brother and sister and mother and aunt have a tall version of one of these, whether it be small, medium, or large, no matter the brand, is there now a demand for them to do more than just cart the Rugrats to the mall? Put another way, is there now a desire for these things, at least the ones that are not Porsches, to be interesting? In our journey to seek out interesting aspects of a pseudo-Korean Southern Belle all-new baby buggy, our first stop would be underneath the hood. And here we don't so much find interesting, rather we find corporate. You see, it's the 2.5 inline-four naturally aspirated we've experienced in many other Hyundai Kia Group cars. In this application, 187 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. That can drive either the front wheels or all four wheels. And no, before you ask, at least now there is no 2.5 turbo with the 8-speed wet dual clutch. There is an N-line, but it's not with that engine. Then practicality. Towing, you can do some towing. You're not going to tow a horse trailer, 2,000 pounds. And then we arrive at something that I find interesting. The fuel economy here, believe it or not, is somewhat respectable. 26, 33, 29 combined. So a bit of a change in scenery today. Not our normal road. However, we are back in the baby buggy. There is a bit of a surprise here. It's not a porker, 3,651 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,656 kilograms. Now, huge provision here. This one is the all-wheel drive with practically every option, so it's about 300 pounds more than the most basic two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. With that, sort of a sport mode. Oh yeah. That's a baby buggy. That takes a while. The switch kind of comes on. It's not really even a switch. You start to feel a little bit of torque around 3,500 RPM, and then it pulls at a very leisurely pace all the way up to about 6,000 RPM, a little bit above 6,500 RPM. It works around town. The engine definitely works in traffic, which brings us to another area that you and I have been rather spoiled in when it comes to Hyundai Kia Group, and that would be transmissions. At this level, thankfully, they are not forcing a CVT down our throat. It's an 8-speed torque converter automatic. However, its performance is not of a geared transmission. It doesn't have the very mechanical shifts of a DCT, like that 8-speed wet dual clutch we've driven in many different flavors of a Hyundai Kia. This, it feels like a CVT. It performs like a CVT. You could tell they're trying to make it more smooth. They're trying to make it more fuel efficient. That's clearly the goal here, but in the process, they give up a little bit of drivability. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, I am not complaining about the performance of the transmission due to my utter disdain for push-button controls. But yes, since we're talking about it, I would like a real geared shifter here as opposed to this. This just gets in the way. It is cumbersome when you're trying to maneuver this thing in low speed situations like moving around the parking lot. Anyway, let's press on to driving dynamics. And here we've got somewhat of a mixed bag. The ride quality is unusually good here, and there's a reason for that. This, you would think, it looks like a CR-V, it looks like a Rogue, it looks like a RAV4, at least from a size perspective. But here, they've taken the opportunity to make it a bit bigger in the most important area, and that is the wheelbase. I've told you guys many times, this is where you package a lot of people and a lot of dogs, the business of a vehicle like this. And here, it's about 3 inches longer in wheelbase than the Toyota and the Nissan, and 2 inches longer than some of the other vehicles that would be in this segment, which changes the ride quality. So there's a bit more wheelbase, a bit more length to spread the driving dynamics over the proportions of the vehicle. Couple that with it's a bit lighter than most of the vehicles out there, and that's why it doesn't disturb the occupants in terms of ride quality as much. However, when we get more aggressive to drive it, that's where it kind of falls apart. It is McPherson struts in the front, multi-link in the rear, and there is a really good amount of pitch. Can't say there's a lot of squat or dive, but frankly, you and I really shouldn't be talking about it in this vehicle because that's not the mission of this. And this is the point where we come back to the mixed bag of driving dynamics. The steering here is a bit more direct. There's good feedback, and the weight is surprisingly good for the vehicle that it is. Then rounding the corner to the brakes, 12.8-inch diameter rotors in the front, 11.8-inch diameter rotors in the rear. And here it's a bit above average considering the type of vehicle it is. There's good feedback, it's direct. Pedal modulation, not something you'd expect in a sports car. Whoa, this, it's lightweight, but the weight can go in different places if you push it too hard. It's not something you want to push aggressively. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Absence game, with today's contestant, something that is incredibly practical. No, not this, rather a 2022, yes, 2022 model year, Hyundai Tucson Limited all-wheel drive for a base price of $36,100. Now, I do feel it prudent to point out that a Hyundai Tucson that is not limited and not all-wheel drive has a base price of $24,950. Put another way, that's like one of the lower grades of Mazda CX-30. Then we press onto the color. This is a metallic burgundy, and it looks really good, especially with the light gray leather interior, which is fitted as standard. To that, the only other thing we add here is carpeted floor mats for $169 if they're optional on a $36,000 vehicle. Then the only other thing we add is the destination handling from the exotic port of call of Montgomery, Alabama, $1,185 for a total suggested retail price of $37,454. Now, of course, I have sandbagged you, because this is the model that is everything. It's the Limited, it has the power moonroof, actually it's a panoramic sunroof, it's got the park distance control, it's got the blinds, all that stuff. However, there is something in between that $25,000 one and this $36,000 one, that is the SEL. That can be had somewhere in like the high 20s, but that does have factory options that can be added to it. Like, for example, there is a premium package which adds the leather as well as the ventilated seats. That's $1,700. But to get that, you have to get the convenience package, which is $2,600. That adds the 19-inch wheels, the sunroof, a regular sunroof, not a panoramic sunroof, the Qi wireless charger, as well as that all-important, at least to the kids who have Tesla interior envy, the 10.25-inch infotainment screen. So you and I already saw this interior in our Santa Cruz episode, and here we have to go again a little inside Hyundai baseball. This is a production vehicle that we're driving. This is something that one would turn up at a dealer and see. The Santa Cruz was a pre-production vehicle. As such, the fit and finish is not near final production. So looking at this, the exact same design, which is to say a good thing, the fit and finish here is significantly better. But again, there's a mixed bag. Like, for example, they got that mesh that breaks up the trim from here to here. I'd like to see that throughout the entire door panel and the center of the dash because it's so unique. However, the top of the dash, it's like that Elantra we drove. The materials used on the top of the dash present two problems. First, yeah, there is that OCD fit and finish side of me that looks at that and says, it's just not good, and it needs to be fixed not only here, but some other Hyundais. Then there's the usability side. Here, there's an issue with safety. Because the reason why most dashboards in vehicles are black is to absorb the sunlight so it doesn't reflect into your eyes so you have better visibility. But here, this being kind of shiny and lower quality materials, you do get a shine, and it does impact visibility a bit. Not to the point where you can't see, but it's just annoying, and it's something that can be a very easy fix. Then, the design. And here, I gotta take my hat off to Chris Chapman and the gang at Hyundai Design in Irvine, because it's many levels above what one would expect in terms of innovative design on the inside of something that is designed to cart the Rugrats around. This is kind of unique in the way they've done this, like, dual cockpit layout, almost like an old school Mustang. Just think about some of the more iconic dashboard designs from like the early to mid 60s. This is a modern interpretation of that theme. Then we move on to the instrument panel itself. One would think the sun would get in the way, and no, it's not like an S-Class, that it's an OLED screen. Yet even after a day of driving in the very harsh Arizona sunlight, there was never an instance where I couldn't see the gauges clearly. Now, not everything here is puppy dogs and roses. I'm going to lodge a couple of complaints to Mr. Chapman, and here he probably knows what it is. Knobs, toggle switches. This thing, please, this is not good for a vehicle, even one that weighs only 3,600 pounds. Safety would dictate a knob here. While I do like the placement of these buttons, primarily because of the way your hand literally falls on them in a relaxed state, I still would very much like a fan knob, perhaps a tuning knob for the radio, or if I'm really getting crazy here, how about a volume knob? But this is the kind of stuff that works in these vehicles, and I would argue makes these stand out in a sea of vehicles that have nothing but ridiculous amounts of screens. I can't help but feeling that this effort is a bit of a mixed bag, and that's due in part to the vehicle itself and the world around it completely changing. Let's start with the easier of those two aspects. You see, the vehicle itself, it is all about the design, and not the macro design, which is pretty attractive. It's about some of the detailing throughout the vehicle. Like, for example, the daytime running lights. It's rather unusual when you see it going down the road, and then obviously the interior we discussed. And then we press on to the part that is a bit challenging. You see, since this vehicle used to be kind of like the value lead in the world here, everything else around it got better. Like that Nissan Rogue. It used to be terrible. Now, it's not terrible. The only reason that the Nissan Rogue doesn't really get closer to this is that terrible transmission that it still has. Everything else, the Nissan Rogue is way the hell too close for comfort, and there are other examples out in the market that are like that have changed since this car has changed. Which brings us to the wish list. And here, it is all about the way it drives. It does not drive poorly, it drives just as good as the Nissan Rogue, and you need a bogey that's higher than that. And I know Hyundai can do better. There, they have to design in much more composure, even into a vehicle that is designed to cart the Rugrats to the mall. And this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, Motoman TV on Word, Motoman TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do want to give you a glimpse of an upcoming episode. You see, for me to go out to Arizona, it wasn't just one vehicle that called me out there, it was two. There was another Tucson to drive, one that has slightly better fuel economy, and the one that gave me much better color as well. So that's going to be coming up in a week or two. In the interim, let's take a break for some baby buggies and drive something just a tad bit more interesting. So until I see you in the next episode, bis später.